Thanks very much, and good morning, everybody. Well, that was a powerful message, Josh. I've also been, there's not much light between us in terms of what I've been advocating for as well, which is, again, uninterrupted, safe data flows between the UK and the EU. And so we've been advocating and pressing for that as well. And also, you won't be surprised to hear that there's no light between Kieran and I as well. So I guess you're not going to get a provocateur out of me this morning to take issue with what Kieran has said. And in fact, some of my staff and I were over at the National Cybersecurity Center last night to have a long discussion about the implementation of GDPR, of data breach reporting, as well as NIST directive discussions. So those discussions continue. Do I have my slides? There you go. I also had a quick look at the delegate list, and it's fantastic to have so many different sectors represented here this morning, all of us talking about the very important issue of cybersecurity. And it's a pleasure to be standing here this morning. As we all know, cybersecurity is attracting more attention than ever, and not just in headlines, but in discussions in the boardroom, discussions with policymakers, with industry leaders, with academics, and with the public. Successful cyber attacks are becoming more frequent, more successful, and I think more threatening as adversaries become more determined and more sophisticated. Only last week, as Kieran was talking about, we had, and usually these notifications come to us at the ICO Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. So that's when nobody gets to go home early. But we were notified by Equifax of the attack on their US systems and noticed that there were some impacts for UK customers. We are working on that file. We've got the investigation underway, and there'll be more information coming out to the public soon. We know that the recent WannaCry ransomware attack, more than 300,000 computers in 150 countries. And not too long ago, Yahoo, in the midst of its sale to Verizon, reported 1.5 billion user accounts had been stolen. So it's no wonder that cybersecurity raises important issues for personal privacy and the data protection tools that we use to protect it. So I think you know this, obvious statement, data security and data privacy have always been linked. Privacy depends on security, and no obligation to provide privacy will be meaningful if the data to be protected is accessed or stolen by unauthorized third parties. As a result, you will see that all modern data protection principles include an obligation to protect information, and security has been recognized in every single codification of data protection, including the EU General Data Protection Regulation and the 1998 Data Protection Act. 61% of businesses in a 2017 survey said that they now hold customer data online. But my concern is for UK citizens who feel that they've lost control of their personal information. And new figures from our ICO annual survey show that only 1/5 of the UK public report having trust and confidence in how businesses are safeguarding their personal data. So that's 80% of potential customers that don't trust companies, businesses like yours, with their details. And that shocks me. And I suspect that that shocks you too. But as the UK's data protection regulator, it's my job to protect the information rights of citizens and to ensure that privacy works hand in hand with innovation in today's evolving digital economy. So innovation in the digital economy depends on the trust of consumers to generate the social license that companies need to break new frontiers in the use of data. So growth that's built on the healthy foundation of trust is sustainable. It is sustainable. Growth built on mistrust is vulnerable to the reputational damage of a data breach. So cybersecurity and data protection are inextricably linked, and both are moving rapidly up the boardroom agenda. I think we all know that gone are the days when cybersecurity was just an IT issue or that data protection was a backroom matter. In today's interconnected world, privacy depends on cybersecurity. The government has pledged to make the UK the safest place to be online. So in its cybersecurity regulation and incentives review, government looked at the UK laws around managing the growing threat of cyber attacks. And it came to the conclusion that the way forward for cybersecurity was the breach reporting requirements and penalties under the new law, and that those represented a significant call to action which businesses can use to improve resiliency around cybersecurity. And so that's where I come in, as the UK's regulator of the new law. And the government has announced that a new Data Protection Act will take the place of the 1998 legislation, bringing the rules around the processing of all personal data in one coherent regime. And that bill will start making its way through Parliament imminently. The introduction of the new Data Protection Bill is welcome because it's going to put in place one of the final pieces of much needed and long awaited data protection reform. We need effective and modern data protection laws with robust safeguards, and that's central to retaining the public's trust and confidence in the use of personal information in the digital economy, in the delivery of public services, and in the fight against crime. So I will be providing my own input as necessary during the legislative process. Like Josh, I think that we need to be as close to Europe as possible with our laws, and I've been advocating for a legal arrangement post-Brexit that provides for uninterrupted data flows. The government's data protection partnership paper, which was released last month, is a very positive step, and it's focusing on data protection. It also advocates for a legal arrangement to provide for essential equivalency that's so critical for companies, for law enforcement, and for individual data subjects. The new Data Protection Act, including the GDPR, is a massive opportunity for cybersecurity, and it's a massive opportunity for everyone in this room. And if you take a step back, what happens if you consider that investments in cybersecurity and data protection, what if you think about them as an investment in your customers? And I think not only does it bring the issue into the boardroom, but we think it's a real opportunity for organizations to present themselves on the basis of the respect that they have for the privacy and the confidentiality of their customers. And I think in time, this can play a real role in consumer choice. And that gives a slightly different perspective to company executives' concerns about the ICO's new enforcement powers. And I think while focusing on big fines and big punishments makes great headlines, thinking about the GDPR in terms of crippling financial punishment misses the main point. GDPR is about enhanced rights for individuals. And the ICO appreciates organizations like you are working under huge pressure and huge challenge because we face the same challenges. Budgets are tight, technology changes are moving so fast, and you have the race to keep up with competitors. But data protection doesn't have to be onerous if you adopt a privacy by design and sound cybersecurity at the outset of any new system, at the outset of any new project. You will find the ICO to be a proactive, reasonable, business-savvy regulator, and we understand what's happening in the real world. The new data protection reforms can be summarized in three main areas: transparency, control, and accountability. The new law requires you to be transparent with customers on how you're using their personal information. Then you have to give them some control, and you have to do what you said you were going to do and not some shiny new use. And finally, this is the real difference in the law, and this is the strengthened part of the law. You have to be prepared to account to your customers and the regulators for what you've done. So businesses will be able to show, you need to be able to show reporting structures, you need to show risk assessments, you need to show us, if you experience a breach, how you acted to stop the flow, what measures you implemented, and the records of your data protection, your privacy management program need to be up to date, accurate, and comprehensive. And they need to be available, and that'll be the first question that the ICO asks after an incident. We do understand that there will be attempts to breach your systems. And we fully accept that cyber attacks are a criminal act. But we also believe that you need to take steps to protect yourself against the criminals. And a huge number of cyber attacks and data security incidents are not sophisticated attacks. And low-tech breaches are frustratingly common in our enforcement work, and many are due to human error. And just one relatively simple technique, an SQL injection, takes minutes. It can be done by amateurs, and it can wreak havoc when a company hasn't carried out sufficient and ongoing training, ongoing testing. So good cybersecurity hygiene is as important for cybersecurity as it is to data protection. So Kieran talked about training and awareness are critical for your organization's staff, protecting your network with ongoing monitoring and testing and robust incident management. Some of you may have noticed that I've been blogging lately about some of the myths that have grown up around GDPR. And my most recent blog was about data breach reporting. And I can tell you right now that your business is not going to need to report to us every single personal data breach. However, it will be mandatory to report a personal data breach under the GDPR if it's likely to result in a risk to people's rights and freedoms. Pan-European guidelines will assist organizations in determining the threshold for when you need to report to the ICO and when you need to notify individual customers. But you don't have to wait until these guidelines are out, forecast December. All of you, I think, can start right now to develop a sense of what constitutes a serious data breach in terms of the context of your own data and the context of your own customers. Another myth that we've been working to dispel is that the law is all about punishing organizations. Personal data breach reporting has a strong public policy purpose. The law is designed to push companies and public bodies to step up their ability to deter and detect data breaches. The public needs to have trust and confidence that a regulator, someone has their back, and somebody is collecting and doing trend analysis to be able to identify what the risks are for organizations, and that helps you now, and that helps you in the future. So what's absolutely clear is that cybersecurity and data protection go hand in hand. The ICO is committed to work with the NCSC to provide more certainty for you, more assurance, and more joined up guidance so that you can understand your responsibilities. So you can look for a suite of guidance from the NCSC and the ICO for cybersecurity and for data protection. I'd encourage you, my takeaway message for you is that I encourage you to use the new regulations as an opportunity to focus on data protection and data security. Ensure that your board of directors understand the new obligations under the laws and the need to invest in safeguards to retain customer trust. We know that data protection law reforms are long overdue, but now they're here, and they'll provide the best incentive for companies to get it right. Thank you very much.